Chains clinked softly against the ancient stone floor, echoing through the vast, hollow chamber like whispers of forgotten gods. The girl stood still, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim blue light that poured from cracks high above. She was unlike anything this world had seen. Tall for her kind, with long silver-white hair cascading down her back and vibrant markings across her face that pulsed like living veins of light. Her eyes, an iridescent swirl of violet and gold, fixed on nothing and everything at once. And though her wrists were bound with iron, there was a stillness to her, not of resignation, but of calculation. Kale stepped into the chamber with the weight of sand and blood still on his boots. His armor clinked softly, a mix of worn leather and old metal shaped his body, like a second skin. He had seen war, and it showed in the way he moved, deliberate, grounded. His eyes flicked to the girl, and for a heartbeat he paused. The legends had called her a weapon, a danger, but she looked small, young. Yet something in her gaze warned him. Don't underestimate me. He approached without speaking, keeping one hand near the hilt of the short sword at his side. The chains connected her to the base of a massive stone column covered in runes. They pulsed faintly as if they, too, recognized him. He ignored it. "You're a Lyra," he said finally, voice rough from disuse. Her gaze shifted, slowly. "And you are not the fool they promised. I've been called worse. You still might be—" She lifted her chin, defiant despite the bindings. Cale admired that. There was something in her tone that dared him to believe she was dangerous, and something in him that already did. He bent to inspect the shackles, eyes scanning for mechanisms, but paused when he saw the script carved into the metal. Old, older than any human language. He traced it lightly with one finger, and it flared briefly at his touch. "She's waking," Alira said softly. Cale glanced up. "Who?" The ground answered. A deep tremor rolled through the chamber, subtle but undeniable. Dust cascaded from the ceiling like falling stars. Somewhere far behind them, metal scraped against stone with a sound that had no right to exist. It felt too old, too intentional. Cale stood, drawing his sword. Alira didn't flinch. "She's coming for me," she whispered. "But she won't ignore you. Not now." Cale frowned. "Who is she?" "The beast. The guardian. The one who knows what I am, and what you are not supposed to be." There was no time to demand answers. A roar shattered the silence, vast and guttural, coming from the shadows beyond the broken pillars lining the back wall. Then, from the darkness, it emerged. The creature moved with fluid menace, claws clicking lightly over the stone as it crawled into the light. Its body was massive, feline and reptilian in equal measure, scaled and sinewed, with eyes like molten gold and a mane of mist-like tendrils. Its mouth hung open, rows of crystalline fangs visible, each reflecting Cale's image like a broken mirror. Cale didn't move. The monster's attention fell on Alira, and for a moment it stilled. Its lip curled. A low rumble vibrated the air. Not quite a growl, more like a warning in a language only monsters speak. Alira met its gaze and stood tall, even as the chain stretched tight. "I won't run," she said, "but you'll regret this." The creature's gaze shifted to Cale. It stopped. Time hung suspended. The only sound was a creaking of stone and the slow, steady beat of Cale's heart. The creature blinked. It sniffed once, twice, and then drew back. It stepped away. Cale didn't breathe. The creature, this ancient sentinel bound to destroy, was retreating, its head bowed slightly, just enough to be unmistakable. Not submission, not fear, but something close. Behind him, Alira's expression cracked. Shock, maybe awe. "That shouldn't be possible," she whispered. "It's never done that. Not for anyone." Cale's grip on the sword tightened, though not in threat. "You know what it saw?" "No," she said, but her voice wavered. "But I think I'm supposed to." The creature turned and vanished into the shadows without another sound. Only the fading echo of its presence remained. Cale turned to Lyra, the faint glow of her markings reflected in his eyes. "Tell me what's going on." Alira hesitated, then looked down at the chains. "Help me first. Then I'll try." Cale hesitated, not out of mistrust, but out of instinct. The chains were not ordinary. The sigils burned faintly beneath his fingertips as he grasped them. Cold energy coiled up his arm, but he pressed forward, blade sliding into the seam, twisting until metal gave way with a crack of ancient resistance. Alira stepped back, free. Her breath trembled, not from fear, from the unfamiliar sensation of liberty. "Thank you," she said, and for the first time, her voice held no challenge, no test. Kale nodded. "You said it was coming for you, but it backed down. Why?" She looked past him to where the creature had vanished. "Because it looked into your eyes," she murmured, and something ancient looked back. A long silence followed. Kale didn't answer. He couldn't. Somewhere, deeper in the ruins, something shifted. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The silence following the beast's retreat was heavy, pulsing with unspoken questions. Alira stood with her back straight, her hands free but trembling slightly, as if her body hadn't yet decided what freedom felt like. Kale watched her, sword still in hand but lowered. Her words echoed in his mind. Something ancient looked back. He had no answer for that, only the weight of it, pressing somewhere deep in his chest. "We need to move," she said finally, voice thinner than before. "This chamber, it's just a threshold." "To what?" She glanced at him, the glow in her markings flickering softly. "To the place where they hid the truth." Kale didn't ask who they were. The urgency in her tone was enough. He gestured for her to lead, but she hesitated, then shook her head. "You first. The temple recognizes you now. It'll open for you." He didn't like the sound of that, but nodded and stepped forward. As he passed between the towering stone columns at the chamber's rear, the wall ahead shivered. A low hum filled the space, like something buried under stone had begun to breathe again. With a deep groan, the wall split, revealing a passage shrouded in cold blue mist. They walked in silence, the air growing cooler, the path narrower. Runes pulsed faintly on the walls, reacting to Kale's presence. He didn't touch them. He didn't need to. "Were you really?" Alira asked, the question laced with wonder and suspicion. "I was raised by monks," Kale answered. "Found as a child near the old battlefield of Kael'rith. No name, no memory. They trained you. They hid me, raised me like one of their own. Gave me the name Kale. Said it meant fire that waits." She studied him as they walked. "That fire woke up today." Kale said nothing. The passage opened into a smaller chamber, circular and domed. At the center was a basin of black stone, empty, but inscribed with unfamiliar symbols. Alira approached it slowly. "My people called this place Therenvo, the Chamber of Knowing. It reacts to bloodline, lineage, spirit." She reached out, then drew back. "It never answered us." Kale stepped closer. "But it might answer me." He placed a hand against the basin's edge. The reaction was immediate. The symbols flared white-blue, casting sharp shadows across the walls. A low tone reverberated through the chamber, not a sound so much as a sensation, like a memory being unearthed. The basin filled, not with water, but with light. Images swirled inside. Starships wore, creatures unlike any seen on Earth. A battle raged among the stars, and at the center stood a figure cloaked in light, holding a sword that bled fire. The Starborn. Alira inhaled sharply. "It's true." Kale stared, unmoving as the vision unfolded. A dying world, a last stand, a desperate act of preservation. The Starborn, beings of immense power and will, sacrificing themselves to trap the devourer beneath the surface of a younger, unsuspecting world. This world. And then one of them falling, wounded, crashing, carrying something. A child. The image faded. The light dimmed. Kale stepped back. His hand trembled. "You're one of them," Alira whispered. "A descendant. A remnant." "No," Kale said, voice quiet but firm. "I'm a man. I bleed. I break." "You looked into the eyes of a primordial beast, and it backed down. That's not something men do." He turned to her, but the argument died in his throat. There was no point. A truth once seen cannot be unseen. "You were never meant to be left alone," she continued. "The Starborn didn't just die. They hid a piece of themselves in you. The power, the memory. maybe even the purpose. Kale walked to the edge of the room, where a new passage was opening, this one spiraling downward into darkness. Why now? He muttered. Why would it awaken now? Alira followed. Because the seal is breaking. He turned. What seal? She looked down, her voice a whisper. The one that holds a devourer. A silence fell between them. He felt the floor pulse again, like a heart far beneath them had just beaten once. Slow. Heavy. We have time, she added quickly. It's still buried, but not for long. Something is waking it. Kale nodded slowly. And they want me near it. Yes. He looked at her, finally understanding. I wasn't sent here to protect you. No, she said. You were bait. The words landed like a blade. He turned away, struggling to keep the storm inside from showing. Then why save me? Why not leave me in chains? Because you looked at me like I was a thing to be used. That's rare, Kale. Even rarer among your kind. He stared into the shadows ahead. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. You don't have to know. You just have to choose. The way ahead was dark, but Kale stepped forward anyway. The walls narrowed. The air grew colder. There were sounds now, echoes that didn't match their movements, whispers without voices, memories of screams. Alira drew close. There's something else. The creature from before. The guardian, it wasn't just a sentry. It was a key. It passed judgment. And I pass. It didn't kill you. That's more than anyone else managed. They walked into the passage, open into another chamber, this one filled with stone statues. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Each wore armor shaped like Kale's. Each bore the same insignia on the chest. A spiral of flame. Kale froze. One of the statues turned its head. Not a statue. A guardian. But this one did not move. It watched. Waiting. They're dormant, Alira said, sleeping, watching over the seal. And if it breaks? They wake. Kale stepped forward, unsure of his footing. The chamber seemed to stretch endlessly, but at the center was a stone slab covered in metal rings. They pulsed faintly with the same energy that had filled the basin. This was the seal. He could feel it now. Beneath his feet, beneath the ground itself, a vast, ancient presence. Twisted, hungering. Kale closed his eyes. A whisper slid through his mind. Not a voice, but a presence. Familiar. Cold. You were meant to be mine. His eyes flew open. He looked at Alira, who was already watching him. Did you hear that? No, but I felt something change. It spoke to me. Then it's already reaching, she said. And it knows who you are now. Kale stepped back from the seal. The air felt heavier. The pressure in his skull was growing, a low pulse like a war drum far away. We need to go, he said. Find a way to stop this. There is no stopping it, Alira replied. Only delaying it, preparing for the moment it rises. Kale looked down at his hands. They trembled less now. Then we prepare. The guardian statues did not move. But somehow, Kale felt their attention settle on him like the weight of 100 fallen kings. The devourer stirred, and somewhere inside him, so did Kale. The wind howled through the ruined corridors of the temple's lower levels, where time had forgotten even the stones. The air here wasn't just cold. It was alive, humming with an ancient resonance that vibrated beneath the skin. Alira led the way, her expression tight, eyes darting like she expected the walls to move. Kale followed close, the weight of what he'd seen pressing heavy on his shoulders. Neither spoke of the whisper that had reached him. Some truths lingered longer when left unspoken. Their path wound downward into bowels of the earth, where light dared not touch. Alira pressed a glowing shard of crystal against the wall, and a blue luminescence spread along ancient veins carved into the stone, revealing glyphs as old as memory. This part of the temple wasn't meant for the living, she murmured. Only the awakened ever came this far. Kale didn't ask what she meant. The closer they drew to the seal, the clearer it became. This was not just a prison. It was a tomb, a test, a final gauntlet for those who dared awaken something that should have been forgotten. The tunnel opened at last into a hollow chamber that pulsed with faint heat, like the breath of a slumbering giant. Its walls were etched with scenes, some familiar from the visions, others new and horrifying. A great war among the stars, yes, but also a betrayal, a shattering. One of the Starborn had broken their oath. At the center of the chamber, embedded into the stone floor, was a sigil of flame, twisting, infinite. As Kale stepped toward it, it flared red, and something shifted in the dark beyond the sigil's edge. A shape emerged, not the beast from before. This one was smaller, more human. Alira inhaled sharply. I know that armor. Kale narrowed his eyes. The figure stepped forward, pale light gleaming off the bronze and obsidian plating of its ancient battle gear. Its face was hidden behind a mask etched with a single spiral. You bear the mark, it said, voice like metal dragged across bone. But do you bear the will? Kale's hand went to his sword. Who are you? I am memory. Judgment. I am what remains when truth rots. The figure drew its own blade, longer than Kale's, tipped with flickering embers that didn't burn the air so much as consume it. It pointed the blade at Kale's chest. You are the Starborn's last mistake, the final echo of their hope. Prove you deserve it, or die beneath its weight. Alira stepped forward. He's not ready. He is chosen. Readiness is irrelevant. Kale drew his weapon slowly, feeling the tremble in his fingers subside the moment the steel met air. The ground beneath the sigil pulsed. The challenge was not only in words, it was in fate itself. They circled. The figure struck first, swift and clean, but Kale met it, sparks flaring as steel collided with steel. The force drove him back a step, but he recovered. Again, blow after blow. The air thickened with heat and strain. He wasn't faster. He wasn't stronger. But he was relentless. The masked warrior's strikes became more erratic, furious, as though each moment Kale remained standing was an insult to something long buried. You carry fire, but you do not understand it, the figure hissed, twisting away and lunging. Kale blocked high, ducked, then slid under the next arc and slammed his hilt into the warrior's side. The impact staggered them both. I don't need to understand it, Kale growled. I just need to keep it burning. The chamber seemed to respond. Runes flared, and the air rippled with unseen pressure. The flame beneath the sigil writhed, rising like a living entity. It circled them, not harming, not helping, watching. The figure's blade glowed hotter now. Then burn. Their swords met again, and this time Kale didn't yield. He drove forward, each strike a statement, each breath a rebellion. The masked warrior faltered under the onslaught, and Kale took the opening. A hard sweep knocked the weapon from the figure's hand. Steel met throat. The masked warrior did not move. You are not yet whole, it said, but you are worthy. Kale lowered his sword. Then what was this? A test, the first of many. You hold the key now, and the burden. The flame receded. The chamber dimmed. The figure stepped back and began to dissolve into dust and embers, leaving only a fragment of its mass behind. Kale picked it up, feeling a pulse of something ancient within the worn metal. Alira approached cautiously. You could have died. But I didn't. No, she said. You were seen. They turned back toward the path, but it had changed. The corridor now sloped upward, lined with new glyphs, different from the others. These pulsed in rhythm with Kale's heartbeat. Whatever lay ahead, the temple had accepted him, or claimed him. They walked for what felt like hours, emerging into a vast chamber open to the sky above, a broken dome crowned with starlight. Here, the air was thick with energy, and in the center of the platform stood an obelisk wrapped in chains of molten light. Kale approached it. The closer he came, the more he felt the pull, like gravity, but deeper. It tugged at something inside him. Is this the seal? He asked. Alira shook her head. No, this is a lock. Before he could speak, a rumble shook the ground beneath them. The stars above flickered. A sound rose from the depths below. A scream, not of voice, but of essence. Something had moved. Alira's expression darkened. It knows you passed a trial. It's watching now. Kale stared up at the stars. Then let it watch. He pressed a hand to the obelisk, and the chains began to melt. The chains didn't break. They dissolved, unraveling into threads of molten light that wove themselves into the air like strands of the dying sun. Kale stepped back, instinct driving him to reach for his weapon, but the obelisk didn't strike. It pulsed once, and a tremor passed through the entire platform, as if the world itself had just exhaled. Then the whispers began again, closer, clearer. They weren't coming from below anymore. They were inside him. You were made for this. Kale staggered, clutching his temples, eyes flared with light he couldn't control. The stars overhead flared in kind, their distant glow responding to something ancient within him. Alira rushed forward, grabbing his shoulder. Kale, look at me. You're not its tool. But it wasn't control the voice sought. It was invitation, the kind that burrowed into the cracks of fear and doubt, offering purpose in place of questions. He shoved the voice back with sheer will, his breath ragged. It's not just watching anymore. It's calling me. Then we're almost out of time. The obelisk cracked down the center, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness far deeper than any they had crossed. From within, a glow pulsed faintly, red and rhythmic. Kale looked at Alira. Is this where it is? No, she said. This is where you are. The descent was silent but tense. The walls wept condensation. The air grew thick, humid, charged with static. Each step brought a strange sense of weightlessness, like gravity itself was bending around them. At the bottom, they entered a chamber unlike any other. It was vast, an underground cathedral of roots and bone and stone. At its heart stood a tree unlike any Kale had ever seen, black as obsidian, with veins of fire pulsing under its bark. It breathed, slowly, loudly, and beneath its roots, a tear in reality itself. A rift. Kale stepped forward and fell to one knee, unbidden, as if the force behind the rift recognized him. The voice returned. I see you, Starborn. I remember the fire that burned me. Kale gritted his teeth. You're what they sealed here. I am what they feared. Alira stood beside him, gaze locked on the tree. This is the source. The prison. The heartbeat we felt. It's not just a devourer. It's this tree. The last living tether between your world and the void beyond. Kale rose. Then we burn it. No, she said sharply. You destroy this tree. The seal collapses. The void floods in. Then what? We wait until decide to break free? Alira stepped closer, placing a hand on the twisted bark. Her markings lit in response. This tree isn't just a prison. It's a gatekeeper. And it's dying. Kale watched her. How long? Days. Maybe hours. Something's been feeding from it, draining it. And now that you've awakened the key, the gate is no longer sealed, just closed. Kale turned to the rift. Through it, he saw movement, shapes that defied form, colors that twisted the eye. And in the center, something immense, coiled, watching. It was still dreaming. But barely. We don't have the power to stop it, Kale said. No, but we can choose who faces it. The implication landed heavy in the space between them. Kale shook his head. If I go through, I don't come back. No, Alira said, her voice low, but you might keep it from coming out. Kale stepped away from the rift, pacing. The voices clawed at the edge of his thoughts now, begging, bartering, offering understanding, power, answers. All he had to do was open the door. I was just a child, he said suddenly. They left me here, buried me in a world that didn't know what I was. They didn't abandon you, Alira said. They hid you, because you were the only part of them that couldn't be turned. He turned to her, eyes raw. You think I can fight what's in there? I think you can become what you were meant to be. A silence followed, but it was not empty. It was the moment before Storm decides where to strike. Kale looked at the rift again, and stepped toward it. Alira caught his arm. Let me go with you. He shook his head. If we both go and we fail, there's nothing left here to hold the gate. She clenched her jaw, trying not to plead, then come back. Kale gave her a tired smile. I'll try. He turned, reached toward the tree. Its roots opened. The rift widened. The air rippled. Then, without another word, he stepped inside. The world buckled. Alira was alone. The tree pulsed once more, then cracked. A shard of its bark fell away, glowing. She caught it, pressing it to her chest. Far above, the stars flickered, and below, Kale opened his eyes in a world where fire bled from the skies, and the devourer waited with a grin carved from the bones of gods.